The words sliced through me like glass. Not because she screamed, but because I realized I wasn't her mother anymore, not in her eyes. I didn't raise them to be cruel. I raised them in the warmth of cinnamon rolls and broken fingernails from building something out of nothing. But none of that matters when your daughter looks at you like you're the problem, like you're in the way. And that's exactly what Mia did on that rainy Tuesday morning. "You don't get it, Mom," she shouted, stepping over the shattered porcelain cup she'd just knocked from the counter. "This business isn't about you anymore. It hasn't been for years." I stood in the doorway of the office I'd built, in the building I had designed, funded, and bled for, watching my daughter unravel everything. The very child I had carried on my back while delivering gift baskets door to door was now telling me I was irrelevant. I didn't scream back. I didn't even raise my voice. Because in that moment, all I could hear was my own heartbeat. The room was spinning and strangely still all at once. Mia stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I just stood there, staring at the cracked ceramic on the floor. It was from the first gift basket we ever sold, a small thing, sentimental, but it meant everything. She was 5 when she'd helped me wrap it. Now she was 32, and every trace of that little girl had disappeared. I dropped to my knees and picked up the broken pieces. My hands trembled, but not from age. From heartbreak. Back when I was 38 and newly divorced, I had nothing but a beat-up van, 2 hungry daughters, and a name I scribbled on a napkin: Ever Gift. It sounded hopeful, like a promise I could build on. And I did. I built a business that started in our cramped kitchen and grew into a multi-million-dollar enterprise. I hired women like me, single mothers, immigrants, retirees with nowhere to go. We made baskets that didn't just hold soaps and wine. They held second chances. Mia was always the ambitious one. Even as a teenager, she had a sharp mind, a sharper tongue, and a hunger for more. I thought I was giving her more. But somehow, I gave her the idea that I wasn't enough. I never wanted to compete with my daughters. I just wanted to build something they could inherit, a future more stable than my past. I left the office in silence that day. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't even take my purse. I went home, sat on the porch swing that had groaned under the weight of years, and stared at the wilting roses I forgot to water. The house was too big, too quiet. And yet, I didn't cry. I was too tired for tears. That night, I found the old scrapbook. Inside were photos of the first warehouse ribbon cutting, the local news article calling me the Basket Queen of Denver, and handwritten thank you notes from women who now had homes, jobs, lives because of Evergift. I remembered one in particular. Sandra. She was 62 when she joined us. Her hands were so arthritic she could barely tie bows. But she came in every day, grateful to be part of something. I remembered how Mia used to bring her tea, listen to her stories. They used to laugh together. What changed? I closed the scrapbook and whispered to myself, maybe I stayed too long. 3 weeks passed. No calls. No texts. No word from Mia or Lily. I'd built my life around them, and now I was orbiting in some silent void. Forgotten. But then came the envelope. No return address. Just my name, handwritten in that sharp, slanted script I hadn't seen since Mia's college days. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Effective immediately, you are removed from all decision-making positions at Evergift. Your shares will remain intact. For the sake of transparency, this move was voted on unanimously. Mia Rose Langford, CEO. Not Dear Mom. Not sorry. Just cold ink on colder paper. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine and watched the sunset alone. I sat with the silence. I let it fill me, numb me. And when I was ready, I stood up, went to the mirror, and really looked at myself. I wasn't weak. I was just grieving. Not the company, not the money, but the illusion that love and legacy go hand in hand. 2 months later, a knock came at my door. I opened it to find Sandra, older, slower, but still with that fire in her eyes. "Can I come in?" she asked softly. I made tea. We sat at the old kitchen table where 1,000 ideas had been born. "I don't know if you've heard," Sandra said, "but Mia's changed everything. She's automating, firing most of the staff, rebranding." My chest tightened. "She's cutting people? Like weeds." I closed my eyes. That was never the vision, never the dream. "They need you," she said. "Not as a boss, as a voice." I was silent for a long time. Then I opened the drawer and pulled out a dusty folder, one I hadn't touched in years. Inside were plans. Old ones. For a sister company, I'd always wanted to start. Something smaller. Something pure. It hit me like a bolt of lightning. I didn't need to fight for what I built. I could build again. The next morning, I put on my best navy dress, combed my silver hair back tight, and stepped out into the sun. I walked down to Main Street and leased a tiny storefront. It smelled of paint and old dreams. Perfect. I called it Second Bloom. Not Evergift 2.0. Something different. A place for women like Sandra. Like me. Like I used to be. We wouldn't sell gift baskets. We'd sell handcrafted care kits tailored for nursing homes, shelters, and cancer wards. Real people. Real impact. Within 3 weeks, we had orders from 4 local clinics. By the second month, a journalist wrote an article titled, "The Hag Who Wouldn't Quit." It went viral. I laughed when I saw it. Because I wasn't angry anymore. I was alive. But Mia? She wasn't done. She showed up one evening, heels clicking, voice clipped. "You trying to compete with me now?" she spat, standing in my doorway. I looked at her, truly looked, and saw not the daughter I raised, but a woman afraid. Afraid of fading. Of not measuring up. "This isn't about you," I said gently. "It's about remembering why I started in the first place." Her face crumpled just for a second before she turned and walked away. Mia didn't speak to me for weeks after that encounter. And I didn't expect her to. She had her empire now, towering buildings, investors, executives in polished suits nodding at her words like gospel. She was becoming exactly what the world rewards. Sharp, fast, untouchable. But I was building again too. Second Bloom was growing not rapidly, but meaningfully. Each kit we sent out carried stories. Handwritten notes. Handmade socks from Dolores, a 73-year-old widow who said knitting kept her sane. Hand-blended tea sachets from Kiana, a single mom with lupus. Care kits with heart, not algorithms. And something strange started happening. People noticed. Local media called again. "The Comeback Grandma." They titled one segment, "Laughing with Me, Not at Me." Then came the volunteers. High schoolers. Retirees. Nurses. People who wanted to help because they remembered what it was like to feel invisible and how powerful it was to be seen again. Second Bloom wasn't just a shop anymore. It was a movement. One chilly Saturday morning, I was packing a set of kits for a women's shelter when I got a call from Lily, my youngest. She rarely called. Mostly texted. Emojis and KS. But this time, her voice trembled. "Mom." I paused, fingers stiff on the ribbon. "What's wrong?" "It's Mia." She collapsed in the parking garage. They said it might have been stress. Or exhaustion. I don't know. I'm at the hospital. My breath caught. I leaned against the table. "I'm on my way." When I arrived at Mercy General, Mia looked so small in the hospital bed. Her makeup was gone, hair matted, the sharp angles of her jaw softened by fatigue. Monitors beeped around her like mechanical lullabies. She was asleep, Lily sitting beside her, eyes red. "She hasn't eaten in days," Lily whispered. "Barely sleeps." She kept saying if Evergift didn't hit Q3 targets, the investors would pull out. I sighed. That's not business. That's a blood sport. Lily looked at me, tears welling. "Why does it have to be like this?" I reached over and touched her hand. "Because we taught her that value came from growth, not goodness." "That's on me." "No, Mom," Lily said. "It's on all of us." Mia woke up 3 hours later. Disoriented. Silent. I sat by her bedside, waiting. Not as a mother. Not as a rival. Just a witness. After a while, she spoke. "I thought I was doing it for you." "What?" "I thought if I built it bigger, made it shine, maybe you'd see me. Really see me. Not the 5-year-old wrapping baskets. Not the intern. The boss." My heart broke again, not from anger this time, but from understanding. "Oh, sweetheart," I said, brushing her damp hair. "I saw you before you ever saw yourself. You didn't have to prove anything." Her eyes filled. She turned her face away. "I ruined everything." "No. You just forgot who you were building it for." Mia stayed in the hospital 2 more days. I visited every day, brought her soup, talked with her like we hadn't in years. She finally asked about Second Bloom, and I showed her pictures, the shop, the women, the boxes full of love. She stared at one photo for a long time. It was Sandra and me, holding up a sign, "You're never too old to bloom again." "That used to be us," she said. "It still can be," I replied. She shook her head. "Evergift is too far gone." "Then maybe it's time to start again." Her eyes met mine, wary, but searching. 3 weeks after she was discharged, Mia did something I never expected. She showed up at Second Bloom. No announcement. No press. Just jeans, a sweater, and tear-streaked eyeliner. She asked to volunteer. At first, the others didn't recognize her. To them, she was just another woman folding towels and sealing envelopes. But she stayed. Day after day. She sat with Sandra. Helped Dolores load supplies. She even baked lemon muffins and left them in the break room with a sticky note. Try not to judge. I'm learning. And for the first time in years, I saw it. The little girl with the messy ponytail and chocolate on her face. The one who used to sit beside me and ask, "Mom, do you think I'll be kind when I grow up?" I never stopped believing she would be. Meanwhile, the fallout at Evergift continued. Investors pulled out. Staff resigned. The rebrand flopped. Public opinion soured. They accused Mia of selling out, of losing the soul that made the brand special. And she agreed. In a rare interview, she admitted it all. "I thought scaling meant success," she said. "But success without soul is just noise." Her voice cracked on live TV, and I wept watching it. Not because of what she lost, but because of what she reclaimed. A few months later, Mia came to my house. She stood on the porch in the exact spot I had once sat, numb and broken. "I want to give it back," she said. "Evergift." She nodded. "Not to you. Not to me. To the women. The ones who built it. The ones we left behind." We talked for hours that night. And by sunrise, we had a plan. We sold the Evergift brand. Not to a conglomerate. To a cooperative made up of former staff, single mothers, and community leaders. They renamed it EverTrue and kept the spirit alive. Mia used her remaining funds to open a grant foundation for women entrepreneurs over 50. She called it the Hag Fund. We both laughed when she told me. And cried. On the day Second Bloom turned 1, I stood in our storefront and looked around. Mia was handing out rose-shaped candles. Lily was holding her new baby girl, my granddaughter. Sandra was humming by the tea station. Dolores was teaching 3 teenagers how to sew sachets. And me? I was alive in a way I hadn't been in years. Not because I had control, but because I had let go. Of the empire. Of the resentment. Of the need to be seen and instead, just loved. There will always be broken cups. There will always be words you can't unsay. But there's something powerful in starting again even when the world calls you a worthless hag. Especially then. Because sometimes, when they stop listening, you build something louder with love. The day the grant applications opened for the Hag Fund, over 300 women applied in the first 48 hours. Mia sat on my living room floor in sweatpants, glasses slipping down her nose, reading story after story. Widowed women starting organic spice lines. Former inmates launching sewing collectives. Grandmothers developing sustainable skincare formulas in their kitchens. By the 3rd night, she looked up at me with puffy eyes. I didn't know there were this many women out there trying to rebuild from scratch. I smiled and handed her a cup of tea. That's because nobody asks them what they're building. They just assume their time has passed. She blinked back tears. "They're me. They're you." I nodded. Exactly. Meanwhile, Second Bloom was overflowing. We had to move into a bigger space. The local fire marshal jokingly warned us that if we didn't stop attracting volunteers, we'd need crowd control. But we didn't want to stop. The more women came in, the more we grew, not just in output, but in heart. We introduced a mentorship circle, a weekly candlelight conversation night where older women shared their stories and younger women just listened. Not to reply, not to fix, just to absorb. One night, Mia stood up to share. She was nervous, voice cracking, hands trembling. But then she said something I'll never forget. "I built a $12 million business trying to win my mother's approval. But I lost myself doing it. What I've learned now is we don't need to be empires. We can be gardens, blooming again, and again, and again." There wasn't a dry eye in the room. But then came the letter. It arrived in a stiff, white envelope, bearing the seal of a major consulting firm, Wexler and Hart. Inside was a 3-page notice. A former Evergift board member, a man named Howard Tate, had filed a claim to stop the sale to the cooperative. He argued the transfer was irresponsible, non-fiduciary, and emotionally motivated. He wanted the Evergift brand auctioned to the highest bidder. I read it twice. My stomach dropped. Mia looked pale. He's going to gut it. She was right. If the lawsuit went through, EverTrue would be dismantled before it even had a chance to stand. We called the women's co-op that night. They were terrified not just of losing their jobs, but of losing their voice again. I could feel the ghost of my old self, the woman who'd built things alone, shouldered everything herself. But this time, I didn't have to. We fought. We filed affidavits, reached out to every journalist, every voice in our network. And then, Lily had an idea. We don't need lawyers, she said. We need a story. So we told it. On social media, at local fairs, through documentaries. We created a campaign called Ever True Voices, where every woman who'd been empowered by the company shared her journey. Sandra told hers how working at Evergift helped her escape isolation after her husband died. Dolores told hers how she was able to send her granddaughter to college because of her earnings. Mia told hers too, not as a CEO, but as a daughter who'd been lost in ambition and found in humility. Within a week, the story went viral. And suddenly, Howard Tate didn't look like a concerned fiduciary. He looked like a soulless executive trying to take something honest and gut it for profit. Public pressure mounted. Donations poured in. Celebrities retweeted our cause. One even visited Second Bloom anonymously and left a check for $50,000 with a sticky note. Keep blooming. The lawsuit was dropped. Howard Tate slithered back into his corner of the corporate world. And the Ever-True Cooperative was safe. That night, we celebrated. We set up fairy lights in the Second Bloom courtyard, lit candles, and played old jazz records. Women danced barefoot. We roasted marshmallows and told stories. Mia leaned over to me and said, "You know, I never thought peace could feel this loud." I laughed. "It's not loud. It's alive." She raised her glass. To staying alive. We clinked. Months passed. Life settled into a rhythm. Lily started hosting business classes for teen girls in the back of the shop. Sandra taught a class on resilience at the community college. Dolores finally retired for real this time and moved to Florida with a widower she met at the YMCA. And me? I started writing a book. About the business, the betrayal, the comeback, the grace. Mia helped me with the title. The Worthless Hag Who Built Again. Publishers fought over it. But no success meant more to me than what happened on a warm spring morning, when my granddaughter, barely 4 years old, ran into my arms and asked, "Grandma, can I build things too?" I kissed her forehead. "You already are, baby." And still, there are hard days. Days when grief hits from nowhere. Days when I miss my youth, my husband, the simpler times when just surviving felt like a win. But then I walk into Second Bloom. I see the women. I see the life. And I remember, I didn't just build a business. I built a place where women are reminded over and over that they are not done. They are never done. The weeks following the lawsuit's dismissal were some of the most hopeful we had seen in years. We hosted our first Second Bloom Marketplace, a community pop-up event where women who had received HAG Fund grants could showcase and sell their products. Our little courtyard transformed into a patchwork of tables, booths, string lights, and color. Lavender sachets, organic jams, reclaimed wood jewelry boxes, locally printed t-shirts with slogans like "Grit doesn't wrinkle" and "Bloom anyway." One woman, Elena, a cancer survivor and former hotel housekeeper, sold out of her handmade candles in under 2 hours. She cried in Mia's arms, saying it was the first time anyone paid for something she'd made with her hands. That night, Mia and I stayed late to clean up. She sat on the curb, legs stretched out, shoes tossed off beside her. "You know what I realized?" she asked, unwrapping a leftover cupcake. "What's that?" "I used to measure success in contracts and conversion rates. Now I measure it in hugs." I chuckled. Same currency, different bank. Mia wasn't the only one changing. Lily, always the quieter daughter, started coming around more. She brought her little girl with her, and it became tradition for them to water the garden out front. The baby loved the snapdragons. Always called them smiley dragons. One afternoon, Lily pulled me aside. "I never said this, but I was angry with you too. For a long time." I didn't flinch. I nodded, waited. "I thought you gave everything to the business. That we were always second. But now, watching you with her, I realized maybe you were building it for us. So we wouldn't have to fight like you did." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I never stopped loving you, Lily." "I know," she whispered. "I just forgot for a while." In July, the heat rolled in thick and stubborn. But that didn't stop the work. Second Bloom was now employing 14 part-time women, all over the age of 50, and still growing. We secured a partnership with the city to supply comfort kits for newly housed seniors, an initiative that lit a spark in every volunteer. I started receiving handwritten letters again, some from strangers, some from former employees, all with a common message. You reminded me that my story isn't over. But the most surprising letter came in a pale yellow envelope. It was from Janice, one of the original Evergift investors. She had voted me out years ago. Her handwriting was careful, deliberate. Dear Marion, I was wrong. I chased profit. You chased purpose. I should have seen the difference sooner. I'm proud of what you've done, not just with Second Bloom, but with your daughters. If you're open to it, I'd love to contribute in some way. No strings. Warmly, Janice King. I stared at it for a long, then I smiled. Because even the ones who once pushed me aside were watching. And maybe, just maybe, changing too. That fall, we hosted the first annual Bloom Again Gala, a modest but radiant evening in the local library's event hall. We dressed in pastels. We decorated with photos of our women at work. We had no red carpet, no press. But we had something better. Testimonies. Not of tragedy, but of triumph. Women took the stage to share what Second Bloom and the Hag Fund meant to them. One had opened a tiny bookstore in her garage. Another launched an after-school cooking program. A third simply said, I stopped thinking of myself as expired. When Mia got up to speak, the room fell silent. She held the microphone close and looked directly at me. My mother, she said, her voice calm, is not a hag. But if she is, I hope to become one too. Laughter. Applause. Tears. Then she finished. She taught me something no boardroom ever did. That true power is remembering where you came from and using your hands to lift others, not just yourself. I closed my eyes and let the tears fall, because I finally felt whole. The next day, I walked alone to the park near our old house. The bench under the elm tree was still there, the one I used to sit on while Mia and Lily played with sticks and leaves. I sat down slowly, breathed in the soft hum of autumn, and whispered, thank you, to the struggle, to the failure, to the heartbreak, because they led me here, to this seat, to this peace. That same week, an editor called from a major publishing house. They wanted to turn my book into a national release with a tour, press, maybe even a documentary. I asked if they were sure people wanted to read about a grandmother who got fired by her daughter. The editor laughed. Ma'am, she said, you didn't get fired. You got free. And you changed the damn world. We signed a deal. And I insisted on donating every penny from the first 10,000 copies to the Hag Fund. Because the next Marion is out there scrubbing pans, fighting tears, trying to dream through exhaustion. And she deserves someone betting on her. 2 months after the publishing deal, I stood at the podium of the Denver Women's Leadership Forum, gray blazer, worn heels, my granddaughter's pink butterfly clip still clinging to my jacket from earlier that morning. The room was packed, mostly women, all ages, all shapes, all stories. I held a worn copy of the first proof of my book. Its title, The Worthless Hag Who Built Again, glowed under the spotlight like an inside joke shared between generations. I didn't read from the pages. I didn't have to. I spoke from memory. I used to think legacy was about leaving behind a company. But now I know better. Legacy isn't what you leave behind, it's what you plant while you're still here. And if it blooms after you, that's just grace. Applause. Standing ovation. Hugs from strangers. But what stayed with me most was the young woman who waited at the end of the signing line, tears on her cheeks. I didn't know women our age could start again, she whispered. I reached out, squeezed her hand. We don't start again. We continue. That's even more powerful. The next morning, I was back in the shop. Second Bloom was quieter now, not because we were slowing down, but because the work had settled into something steady, mature. It no longer needed chaos to grow. Dolores sent a postcard from Florida, a photo of her and her boyfriend feeding pelicans. Tell the girls I'm blooming by the beach now, she wrote. Sandra had been invited to speak at a statewide housing summit. She wore the navy shawl we gave her at our anniversary celebration. And Mia, my daughter, my mirror, my once foe, was now co-director of the Hag Fund. She'd left corporate for good, traded quarterly reviews for handwritten notes, spreadsheets for potlucks. Sometimes I'd catch her humming while sealing care packages. She was happy. Not rich, not powerful, just deeply, steadily happy. Then came the biggest surprise of all. One evening, I walked into the shop and found Lily standing at the counter, cheeks flushed. I want to open a store, she said. I blinked. A store. She nodded. For mothers. New mothers. Single mothers. Scared mothers. A space with free diapers, hand-me-downs, lactation help, and most of all people who listen. She hesitated. I want to call it rooted. My throat tightened. Will you help me? She asked softly. I pulled her into my arms and whispered, with everything I have left. We launched Rooted 6 months later. It was tucked inside a small brick building 3 blocks from Second Bloom. The front window read, "You're not broken. You're becoming." On opening day, a line wrapped around the block. Inside, we offered everything from donated cribs to warm meals to evening classes on budgeting and baby massage. But what we really offered was dignity, safety, a place where women could walk in unsure and walk out not fixed, but held. And when Lily gave her first talk, she stood beside Mia and me and said, "I used to resent how hard my mom worked. But now I see she wasn't trying to escape us. She was trying to save us. One basket, one kid, one act of faith at a time." My heart swelled with something too big for words. On my 70th birthday, the girls threw me a surprise party. Well, they tried. I walked in a full hour early, catching Mia mid-candle lighting and Lily half-hiding a cake that red hags rule. We laughed until our sides hurt. The room was full of everyone we'd met on this journey. Former Evergift employees, bloomers, Hag Fund recipients, Sandra, Dolores on FaceTime from Florida, and my granddaughter, now 6, wearing a crown made of tea bags. We ate lemon cupcakes and danced to Motown. At one point, they sat me down and played a slideshow of everything we'd built together. Second Bloom, Rooted, Ever True, the Hag Fund. Each photo was a heartbeat. Each woman a story. Each act defiant, redemptive, blooming. At the end of the night, Mia pulled me aside. "There's something else," she said, handing me a thin manila envelope. I opened it. Inside were incorporation papers. A new project. A national platform for older women-owned businesses. A digital hub. Grants. Microloans. Even a traveling pop-up. At the top was the name. Hag Nation. I laughed so loud people turned. "You're serious?" I asked. Mia nodded, eyes bright. "Dead serious. I want to build it with you." I shook my head in awe. "You really turned that insult into a revolution." She grinned. "You gave it to me first." I hugged her so tightly I felt every year fall away. In the months that followed, we laid the foundation. Hag Nation launched with 12 businesses. Within the year, it had grown to 86. A community of women over 50 launching, rebranding, reclaiming. We held online events, virtual pitch nights, Bloom boxes mailed monthly with stories, samples, and handwritten notes. Women wrote from all over the world. I thought it was too late. "You reminded me that I matter." I built again, because you did. One night, years later, I sat in the same rocking chair I'd once nursed both girls in. The sun dipped below the mountains. In my lap, my great-granddaughter, only a few weeks old, tiny fists curled under her chin, breathing like she trusted the world would hold her. Mia stood in the doorway with Lily beside her. I looked at them, women I had once broken myself for, grieved over, feared I'd lost. They were whole. We were whole. So no, I didn't get a quiet retirement. No beach house. No sipping wine while watching the waves. I got something better. I got rebirth. And if you're reading this, maybe wondering if you're too old, too late, too lost, I want to leave you with this. You are not a burden. You are a seed, planted deep in rich soil, waiting not for permission, but for sunlight. Bloom. Loudly. Boldly. Softly. Any way you damn well please. Because your second act might just be your masterpiece.